Oh, that's a new sound. Hi, blessings. Candace and Devaya and Tina and Anna. It's good to be with you. I'll continue to let folks in. Hi. In from the waiting room as we begin, but thank you for arriving on time. I really appreciate it. Uh, yeah, I'm just back from retreat and yeah, finding myself really like looking forward to sitting with you and talking about the second arrow and feeling tone and how deeper understanding of this really helps free us up to yeah live with more ease and more peace and more joy. So as we begin, I'd love to hear from you, like if there's any intention that's in your heart, like what is it that you're most wanting to feel or receive. Yeah, what brought you to practice this morning or whatever time it is for you. You can just put it in the chat. Yeah, why are you here? Need your good vibes and flow. Tina, awesome. My good vibes and my flow, Tina, are yours. You wouldn't see them in me. So I'm reflecting something back to you that's in your heart. Yeah, we can't see anything in someone else that we don't actually have access to ourselves. I'll wait for one more intention. Commitment, yes, Devaya. Blowing my mind already. Candace, bring more happiness. Yeah, welcome, Candace. Anna, find confirmation. Yeah, good, good, good. Beautiful. Welcome. How many of you who the second arrow, when I say the second arrow and the teaching about the second arrow, is this like I'm looking at Marilyn, this is probably familiar, and I know it's familiar for Marilyn, but is this a familiar, have you heard of this before, the second arrow? Yes, no, no, yeah. Okay, I want to talk about what this means. Ah, nice to see you too. What the second arrow is, what it means. So, okay, all right. Okay, so, and this, and as with all things, a deeper understanding of these things does really help us, the insight around the way we add to our own suffering helps free us up from doing that. So the second arrow really is the ways in which we add to suffering, to dissatisfaction, to fear, right? To what the Buddha called dukkha, which is like basically unsatisfactory. You ever notice this like in life? We're sort of shifting and adjusting. We're always trying to get things right, or, there's a sense that things aren't quite right. And maybe if I just move this or do this or shift this, or this person changes, or I get this thing, and then all of a sudden I'll be happy, I'll be satisfied. It's like an itch and we scratch it and the scratching doesn't seem to help. It actually seems to make it worse. And so the arrow is the first arrow, because we're talking about the second arrow, right? So what's the first arrow? The first arrow is, you know what? Life will knock us around a little bit. We're going to have moments of beauty and wonder, and there's going to be things in our life that feel good, and there's going to be things in our life that we don't like. It's like we're walking around, say, in the forest. I don't know, back in the day when there would be like bows and arrows, right? And let's say we got shot with an arrow. Ow, ow, that hurts, right? Like that already hurts. Just that arrow, that first arrow going in. What we do as humans is we tend to add, well, we can add the second arrow and the third arrow. And what the second arrow is like, why did this happen to me? You know, it shouldn't be this painful. It shouldn't be this way. I shouldn't have gotten hurt with an arrow. Oh no, like how long am I going to be healing from this wound? This is the second arrow. It's the way we take something that's already challenging, or the way we take something that we find really pleasant and we try to hold on to it, or we push it away. Grasping and aversion are actually, those are the ways that we really, that's what creates the pain in our lives. It's not the arrow itself. The arrow itself, it hurts, right? Ow, right? Maybe we take it out, we mend the wound, we heal, but we make things a bigger problem through the ways in which we think about things. And that thinking tends to fuel troublesome emotions. And then we create this cycle, and the Buddha called this the second arrow. Does this make sense? Does this make sense? The second arrow. Okay, yeah. Why me? Why did this happen? Why is this going on? What's this all about? I was watching, I read the book too, Big Sur, Jack Kerouac, not my favorite. My favorite book by him is The Dharma Bums, but actually wasn't a big fan of Big Sur. Like the first part of it I thought was good, and then he totally lost me at the last part of it. But it's a really good example of the second arrow, because you know, he sees things like death, like a mouse dying, his cat dies, these kinds of things, or you know, things, or boredom. You know, he gets bored in this cabin in Big Sur, and he takes this uncomfortable situation or this painful situation and adds all kinds of dukkha to it, all kinds of stuff to it, by like, what is the meaning of all of this? Why is this happening? This shouldn't be happening. So the second arrow, and then he, you know, goes down the spiral of, you know, he was an alcoholic, so then he just goes and drinks himself into oblivion. And that just makes things worse in his attempt to avoid what he finds painful or uncomfortable. I mean, life is heartbreaking sometimes. If we believe that that shouldn't be happening or that's wrong, we add a lot of problem to something that's already hard or challenging. Okay, thanks, Candace. Yeah, sometimes I like to check in and just make sure this is making sense, because if it's not making sense, there's no point in me doing this. You know what I mean? So that's the second arrow.
Everything you're saying, Katrina, always makes sense. I love being here.
You're getting some Dharma, some soul food. Yeah. It's like coming to Sangha like this is Sangha, you know, spiritual community. We come here to get soul fed. Like there's something deeply nourishing about this, about what we do every Tuesday and coming together in this way. So thank you, Candace. I'm glad that this is adding something of value to your life, you know. So let's talk about, so when we understand the second arrow, we're like, why would we want to create more problem for ourselves? We don't have to. That's the good news. There's a very real and practical way that we can, we don't have to add, we don't have to create, we don't have to, you know, dig a hole and, you know, kind of, you know, get overwhelmed, the snowball effect. This is like, you know, creating, we can do this with both pleasant and unpleasant, right? So I was talking about unpleasant, but pleasant experiences too, man. We create a lot of suffering for ourselves by trying to hold on to pleasant experiences. Everything passes. Everything passes. Nothing ever stays the same. You can count on that. You can count on that impermanence. Nothing ever stays the same. So whether you love a flower, or, and you know, if you love flowers and you hate weeds, that's fine, but both will happen regardless of whether you like it or not, you know? And if we're not aware of these preferences and the way that they can really grab us, pleasant experiences, we want to hold on to them. We've all had this experience. We take a bite of chocolate cake, man, it tastes good. Tastes like more, doesn't it? Tastes like more, tastes like more. We know where that goes. We can't hold on to pleasant experiences and trying to hold on to it. Drinking, I know this one really well. You know, man, one glass feels great. I want more. Give me another one. Give me another one. Give me another one. Before we know it, we are up to our ears, our eyeballs in suffering. When we try to hold on to pleasant, we suffer. Relationships, we do this. Like we meet someone, we think they're incredible, they're amazing, and then we might get scared that they're going to go away, holding, grasping. So we're going to talk more now about feeling tone and pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And why this is important to note, to understand. Just looking at my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything. I want to say this, our deepest joy is not to be found in things pleasing us. It's not about having as many pleasant experiences as possible. Like, that's actually not where the deep satisfaction and joy comes from. And so it's good to distinguish between pleasure and satisfaction, right? Satisfaction, being satisfied, there's an enduring quality to it. Pleasure comes and goes. Pleasure's great. Have at it. You know, we have these animal bodies. I love chocolate cake. You know, I'm not saying anything. I think alcohol is fine if you can handle it. I can't. So I don't do it. But right, it's like there's nothing wrong with pleasure. Pleasure is wonderful. Like I love pleasure. We should have pleasure in our lives for sure. We get in trouble when we hold on to it, when we don't want it to go away, when we try to make it last. Same with unpleasant, you know, just trying to push it away. I went for a run this morning. I noticed like a little aggravation in my foot. And I had the thought, oh, I'm going to have to stop my run. But I just noticed that thought because it was unpleasant, the feeling in my foot. And so I'm going to have to stop my run was a thought that I had. And then something in the back of my mind said, well, let me just see what happens. It went away. And that doesn't always go away. Maybe I might have stopped it if it kept going. And it seemed like the wise thing to do was to stop so I don't injure myself. But I waited, I was like, okay, and it changed. So we don't want to be so quick to, like, my teacher, Matthew Brensilver, one of my teachers, he says, and I say this, I've said this to you before, but I'm going to say it again. If we're not careful, we'll fidget our way from cradle to grave, trying to create this like perfectly comfortable and pleasant life experience. And we miss it. In that process, we miss our whole life. We don't want to be fidgeting our way from cradle to grave. And so, and we don't have to, thanks to these teachings. A big part of our suffering too comes from arguing with reality, but we don't realize we're doing it. You know, we argue with reality by trying to hold on to pleasant and trying to push away unpleasant. Reality is, it's impermanent. All things are coming and going at all times. You know, there's always birth and death happening every moment, something's dying, something's being reborn. And so we can trust that. We can trust that. We don't have to try to hold on to things or push things away that we don't like. And then in this process, we are dragged around by our own reactivity. And so I want to talk about 3 points, 3 things that we can keep in mind, and then we'll practice together in this way to, what we want to do is we want to create more consciousness, more awareness around pleasant and unpleasant and neutral. Neutral, we usually just check out. We're not even aware. Like right now, you probably aren't aware of the insides of your toes because it's neutral. Now, if your toes were painful right now, you'd be totally aware of them, right? Or if there was something really pleasurable about your toes right now, you'd be like, you know, I think about this too in growing old. You ever I go into the mirror now and I like do this, pull my skin up a little bit, like, oh, what would I look like if I didn't have these wrinkles? Dukkha. Well, this is dukkha, right? And we know people who get too wrapped up in that, right? Like, you can be in the plastic surgeon's office a lot. And you've seen people like that. Like, well, let me fix this thing in my face. Okay, now there's always something more. And that's actually not leading to deep satisfaction and happiness. It moves us farther away from it. And I don't have anything against work on your face either. You know what I mean? It's just we want to be aware of mistaking that for true joy, true satisfaction, true happiness. It won't do it. We really want to get clear on that. And so as we investigate, like everything has a feeling tone. The Buddha called it Vedana. So thoughts have a feeling tone. I might have a thought pleasant. I might have a thought unpleasant. We have lots of neutral thoughts. Those often go by and we don't even realize they're there. Feelings in the body have a feeling tone, yeah? So right now in your body, you might be aware of things that are pleasant. You might be aware of things that are unpleasant. Or maybe my bringing this up has made you aware that you haven't been in your body. So let's all do that now. Yeah, come all the way into your body and sense what it means to have a body. It's like, oh, that's right, I have a body. So thoughts have feeling tones, sensations have feeling tones. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Sounds have feeling tones. I hear a sound, bird chirping. Usually when I hear that, pleasant. Leaf blower, unpleasant, right? And we're not trying to stop that at all, but we want to be aware of that. Because if we're not aware of that, I mean, you can imagine this is where, if we don't catch these things, if we're not seeing through these things, then, we're believing that it's the leaf blower that's the problem. But in fact, it's my sense that the leaf blower is unpleasant that's really aggravating me. I don't know, maybe someone thinks leaf blowers sound great and they think they're pleasant. Who knows? I don't know. But we want to be aware of these, and they're happening all the time with people you meet. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. We don't want to be pulled around by this. And the only way that we can be not pulled around by it is to see it, is to notice it. Oh, unpleasant. Oh, pleasant. Oh, neutral. We want to, the first point was kindness. So we want to behold all of this with a heart of just like kindness. I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. It's not my fault. And it matters. It's like this arising of pleasant, unpleasant, it just happens. You don't make it happen. It just happens. All kinds of reasons for that. But, not my fault that I find leaf blowers unpleasant. I don't have to make myself like something I don't like, but I want to be aware of the Vedana, of the preference, right? It's really useful when I'm aware that I'm really liking something so I don't get, and then because when it starts to turn into grasping, it actually contracts the heart. Now my world has narrowed. Now I can't be okay unless I have that thing. And that's not freedom, because you don't need that thing to be whole and complete. Love holds it all beyond preference. So we want to, as we become aware of these things, we want to become aware of them with a lot of kindness, compassion, and also humility and reverence for how powerful these forces can be. I mean, wars are created from these forces. I mean, this is like a big deal. A lot of violence happens because of these forces. Imagine if more of us were just clued into this and we caught it at unpleasant rather than letting it snowball into violence or snowball into gossip or snowball into causing suffering, causing harm. The second aspect I wanted to talk to you here about the second arrow, I've talked about this a lot, which is pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral, everything having a feeling tone. And then the third aspect is blessing. So as we sit together and we just notice these things, we want to just bless all that's noticed with our awareness. And then wisdom is just improvisational. So if I'm just noticing, right, we were having breakfast I was having breakfast this morning with the kids, and I haven't seen them, for a week in this way, in our breakfast routine. And I just was sitting there with my coffee and just like pleasant, it was pleasant. I was aware I was enjoying it. It was pleasant. And then my daughter spills water on the table, unpleasant. Now, if I'm not aware of this, I could get really, if I'm aware that it's pleasant to sit with my kids, and like I can really take that in and savor it, enjoy it, right? Not take it for granted. And then when my daughter spills water, if I don't catch the unpleasant, right, I might react, get all uptight. I know I have in the past because she was so quick to say, she wiped it up. I'm sorry, sorry, sorry. And my heart kind of hurt at that. Like it kind of brings tears to my eyes right now to recognize like, oh, she's aware that I get upset, when spills happen. Like she's already got it in her, right? And it's like, I don't judge myself for that, but I'm just aware like, oh, it's really helpful to step back and not be quick to react for a lot of reasons, So what we do, rather than, we don't have to do anything with pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. You don't have to do anything with it. Just noticing is enough. When it's noticed with kindness, it's blessed. When it's noticed with kindness, it's blessed. So the three aspects: number one, kindness; number two, awareness of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral; and number three, blessing all that we become aware of rather than trying to fix or change it. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't take action, but if we take action without this awareness, then, our action can be rooted in fear. And so if we want our actions to be rooted in love, we want to be aware of like, right. We want to be aware of the feeling tone so that we're not, reacting out of the feeling tone, but we're instead having wise response. An example of this would be, I'm in an abusive relationship. Maybe I'm in an emotionally abusive relationship, and this person is, I'm inundated likely a lot with unpleasant in relationship to this person. The wise action would be to change that. I'm not just going to endure abuse. So this doesn't negate wisdom, but wisdom can only come when we're understanding how affected we are by the winds of pleasant and unpleasant. And again, neutral things often we don't even recognize, we don't even notice. They just sort of like, we kind of check out. If things are neutral, you ever notice that if you're just sitting in the day, nothing much happening, it can feel like weird. And then we get quick to like get out of that because it feels uncomfortable and sort of foreign. So that's our typical relationship with the neutral. But overall, when we work in this way, when we learn to recognize, when we have mindfulness of these things, we have an opportunity for true, real, lasting, enduring satisfaction and freedom. I hope that made sense. Marlene's here. So glad you're here. Go ahead and before we start our meditation, which we're going to do, I'd love to hear in the chat, like what's coming up for you, like what's landing for you, or if you have any questions before we sit. Yeah, just go ahead and put it in the chat. It's very helpful for me as a teacher. And then also just mentioning, that these talks are freely offered and your donation really matters. I really appreciate your donations. You can Venmo me or PayPal me or Zelle me. I'm on all the things. What's landing for you, or what questions do you have about the second arrow? So important as we notice these things that we don't judge. We want to be interested instead by like, ooh, I like this. I want it to keep going. I do that with coffee. I love coffee and I'll drink too much coffee because of it. I don't want it to stop. It's so good. You think, well, just drink decaf, but I don't know. I got this thing like, why would you drink decaf coffee? So yeah. Isn't that funny how that happens, Tina? I'm glad. Yeah. Oh, good, Devaya. Thank you. Okay, great. I'm glad that that's exactly what I was wanting, clarity. It's so subtle, these things, but yeah, when we see these things clearly, it really can it makes such a big difference. The noticing and labeling before reacting is a really good way for me remembering to practice. So yes, good. And then, yeah, okay. So as we do this practice together, I just want to remind you as well, like when you this is why sitting practice is so important too, because it's so hard to notice the subtleties of these things when we're in our busy everyday life. And so really just sitting down and noticing, like retreat gives you such a great opportunity to notice it. There's so many little things that come up, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. It's like, yeah. So we need this time to sit on our own and to sit together, so we can even see this stuff as it's coming up. You're not making it come up, it's just coming up, and then we want to just notice the relationship to it. Often in sitting practice, it can happen like you're like, my knee hurts, unpleasant, okay, so like, and then just noticing, just waiting. Maybe you shift your posture, or maybe you don't, you just kind of wait, but we're not just reacting out of that, or, oh, this feels so peaceful, pleasant. How can I get more of this? And you'll notice like the mind starting to grasp. And the noticing is the medicine. The noticing is the medicine. You don't need to do anything with it. Seriously, you don't have to do anything with what you notice. The noticing itself is the medicine. Yeah, noticing the neutral. Yeah. So much neutral. We can really balance out our perspective by letting in more neutral. So we're not so like, you ever feel like that? You're kind of ping-ponging back and forth between like pleasant and unpleasant. It's like the more we let in the neutral, I think the more balanced we feel and the more balanced we become. Good. So let's sit together. I'm on my cushion today. My altar in my bedroom. I have my candle lit for you. I have Kuan Yin and Buddha. I also have above my altar, I have a cross, because I'm a funny, I have a different I grew up Catholic, but I'm also Buddhist. It's kind of a funny thing, but I like to show that because we needn't be like rigid in our belief systems, practice. We can open to like, yeah, whatever works for us. And so as we meditate together, I want you to take this as well, like, just take what works and leave the rest. Always take what works and leave the rest. I find myself just naturally starting to deepen my breath. You might do that too. We'll let go of altering the breath in a moment. But to begin, it can be nice to just take like a nice deep breath in and hold at the top of our inhale. And then sip in a little bit more. And sigh it out. Like letting air out of a tire. And again, deep breath in. Hold, sip in more. And maybe there's 5 or 10% more ease available. And one more like that, breathing in. And a little more. Let it go. Chanting Om 3 times, deep breath in. It's a way to really steady the attention. We just allow the breath to be at the forefront of awareness. Noticing the way the breath moves the body. And just staying with the breath, sort of like touch the breath as it comes in and goes out. You don't have to concentrate on it, but keeping it at the forefront of awareness. Once there's some steadiness with the breath, starting to just notice the various sensations in your body. What sensations you're noticing now? And noticing if the sensations are pleasant or unpleasant. There's a lot of neutral but you're probably not noticing that as much as the pleasant or the unpleasant. Just spending some time now being aware of sensations in the body, what awareness notices. And the feeling tone of what awareness is noticing. Remembering the backdrop of kindness. We have to remember that backdrop of kindness. So our default is often criticism or indifference. You might also include your mood or your emotional world. You know, sometimes we feel peaceful, pleasant. And sometimes we feel restless, unpleasant. Or sometimes we're sleepy. Sometimes we have a lot of energy. So I want to notice this as well as the feeling tone. Of course, thoughts arise, images, impressions, or sort of the auditory. It's like almost like a narrator between the ears. Those have feeling tones too. Do you notice you get snagged by a thought? What's for lunch? What am I doing later? Notice pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. You can come back to the breath if you feel like that would be helpful to anchor back into presence. Just letting the awareness sort of extend to thoughts, sensations, maybe sounds as well. Noticing what awareness is noticing and noticing the feeling tone around what awareness is noticing. Maybe you're fluttering your eyes open now and orienting to your space by just looking around. So important as we do these practices that we remember our nervous systems, lest we be tugged around by threat or opportunity, which is like sort of the nervous system's way. Woo! Yeah. So good to sit with you. I wanted to share this with you before we close. One thing I want to share is something that one of my teachers said on retreat, which I really thought, wow, that's so true. He said, practice without kindness is reckless. Practice, meaning awareness, without kindness is reckless. That really hit me. And I was like, oh, I know that to be true because it's so easy to judge what we notice. And it's so easy for us to judge what we find pleasant or unpleasant, or when we notice, when we're just more aware. As our awareness grows, we want to grow the kindness too. So important, so important. And as a way to illustrate, I want to show this guy is called a black-poll warbler. When it's born, this little bird, it's an ounce. It weighs an ounce, and it has to fly 3 miles up, and then it flies. I forget to where. But it flies a great distance, and then it lands and lives and whatever. But right out of the gate, the black-poll warbler is faced with this task. And imagine if it were ruled by pleasant or unpleasant. If it was like, oh, I really don't. Why do I have to do this? Like, oh my gosh, it's so far up. I'm just this little thing. Like, why me? I mean, imagine if this is just to illustrate, like, this is what our life is asking of us. It's like to fly 3 miles up, being half an ounce, weighing an ounce. It's like the strength, that we get to call upon when we're no longer believing that life should always please me. We miss out on a lot of life when we view it that way. Sometimes we got to fly 3 feet up or 3 miles up into the air, and travel a great distance, and we can do it. We absolutely have the strength to do it when we're not bound up by the second arrow. And so so good to practice with you as we come to a landing place. Be kind with yourself today. And I invite us all into this inquiry of, like, notice throughout your day, like, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Just noticing how that comes up for you. And the awareness of it helps to free us up from it. So it helps to free us up from the reactivity that we have, and helps us nourish a sense of inner stability and sort of unflappability. It feels really good, like imperturbability. What are you taking away from our gathering today, from our Sangha? And I'm going to mention this. I'm going to be a broken record about this. Please share our group with other people who you think could benefit from, if you know of someone who's looking for a meditation group, or you just know someone who's going through something in their life, or, whatever it might be, like, yeah, if this nourishes you, it might nourish them. Invite them to join us. I'd love for our Sangha to grow. Yeah, yeah, our spiritual community. So what's landing for you? What are you taking away from our time together? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Yeah. Oh, Tina, right? I know it's like, it's food. I know when I come to Sangha too, I just feel like I'm like this. It's like, it's so nourishing, isn't it? So Tina too, like, you know, in between our meetings, like sitting on a daily basis, this is true for all of us. You know, have your practice, prioritize your practice, and listen to talks. You know, dharmaseed.com has a lot of great talks on there. My YouTube channel, I have a lot of great content and talks on there. If you find that this nourishes you, like, it's totally okay to be obsessed about it. This is a good obsession. You know, eat the Dharma, you know, eat it. Like it's a, yeah, yeah, you know, for sure. Sweet. Yeah. Feeling calm and grateful. I will practice no good. Yeah, I know you will, Marilyn. I know you will. Noticing throughout the day, this is Marlene, nourishes our sense of unflappability. Yes, Candace, I hear you.
Yes.
Did you want to share, Candace? I think you like, I heard you and then you kind of cut out. Meditation will help us notice feeling tones. Yeah, that's right. If we catch the feeling tone, right, what happens is we catch this, it's like it helps us not snowball. We don't want to snowball as best as we can help it. Yeah, I do. It's coming to me because I'm starving for it. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Yeah, so please do share this. Just share the link with anyone who you think could benefit from this, and I'll be back next week. If you have any requests, something you'd like to talk about or address, I'm totally open to that. You can email me at thethrivinghealer@gmail.com. Okay, so good to be with you, Candace and Anna and Marlene and Marilyn and Emma and Devaya and Tina. I'll see some of you tonight or at 4 p.m. PT for Spirit Coach Rising. I saw a couple of you are signed up for that tonight at 4 p.m. PT. If you are a coach or interested in being a coach, you don't want to miss that. And sending you love and blessings. Be well. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye. Love you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, Marlene.